This story begins with our protagonist Arel sitting and watching his relatives speaking so warmly. His father then mentions Arel's surprising calmness, a stark contrast to his own anxiety, as he had been so worried about what class he would be blessed with that he barely slept. His mother also mentions she's more nervous for him than she was on her own big day. His older sister stands up and exclaims that Arel is the best little brother she could ever ask for, so she is completely certain that he will be granted the most incredible class imaginable. Hearing this, his mother mentions that this means Arel will become popular with the girls. This obviously upsets his older sister, who steadfastly refuses to permit such a thing, stating that he is still too young for a girlfriend. Meanwhile, our protagonist listens to all this from afar, pondering this concept known as classes. It is at this point that something is explained to us. In this world, a class is something the goddess blesses people with. When people turn 10 years old, the goddess bestows a class upon each individual during a blessing ritual. After that, they become capable of acquiring abilities appropriate for their classes, and with that, we switch to a new scene. At the city's church, all the citizens have gathered to witness the blessing ritual. The evaluator then commences the ritual, and one by one, the children step forward. Some individuals receive classes such as blacksmith, farmer, swordsman, among others. Arel observes as his turn approaches. From behind, his sister offers him reassurance, stating that their family lineage strongly influences one's class, so he's bound to receive an excellent one. At that very moment, the evaluator calls for the next person in line. It's Arel's turn now. His parents and sister wholeheartedly wish him good fortune. As he steps forward, they gently remind him to remain composed. Our protagonist, as indifferent as he usually is, slowly moves forward. The people in the church begin to make various comments. Some, upon seeing Arel, murmur that there goes Leon's son. Another person mentions that their family is unforgettable, especially since Arel's mother, Farah the Sword Princess, and his father, Leon the Archmage, both holding advanced classes, got married. With this in mind, they claim that Arel, as the son of both, will obviously be a superior and privileged individual. The evaluator then commences the protocol. He asks him to close his eyes, explaining that God will grant him visions of his class. Arel correctly follows the instructions given. However, when he closes his eyes, he reveals he sees nothing. This puzzles the evaluator. He doesn't understand why he can't see anything. He can only find one explanation for all this. He suggests that he is classless. Everyone waiting in anticipation is stunned by this revelation. His family, especially his sister, refuses to accept it, yelling that it's a lie. But Arel, as indifferent as he always is, simply scratches his face. After all that has happened, Arel and his family have returned home. We see him diligently practicing his sword handling. His mother and father try to encourage him, saying that it doesn't matter that he's classless and that they will both continue to work even after retirement, so he doesn't have to force himself to get a job. Thus, they also see no reason for him to consider dying. Arel denies having any intention of doing that, but his sister arrives right then and asks him not to lose his calm, stating that she, as his older sister, will always support him no matter how rebellious he becomes. Our black-haired protagonist, realizing they aren't listening to him, sits down with them and insists that he's not discouraged. He highlights that he has been studying swordsmanship with his mother since he was a child, and although it would be simpler to become strong with a class such as a swordsman and acquire sword abilities, he doesn't disregard the possibility of growing stronger through training, exactly as he has been doing up to this point. This brings back a memory of when he attempted to train with his mother, as this wild woman, with a single sword strike, sent him soaring into a tree. Arel asserts that hard work truly matters, so even if he lacks a class or any special abilities, he doesn't intend to be discouraged. His determination moves his family, who support him from the bottom of their hearts, saying that he will go very far. Our protagonist, tired of constantly hearing the same old things, decides to go to the training grounds. Upon arriving at the training ground, he observes some children practicing swordsmanship. They comment on how wonderful it feels to possess abilities, as their bodies seem to move almost instinctively. Just then, they notice him, and one recognizes him as the classless boy. They ask him what he's doing there. Arel answers that he came to train just like everyone else. Upon hearing this, however, the arrogant brats tell him that since they are swordsmen, they do not need to undergo training and merely came to demonstrate their abilities. One of them comments that he will give him a demonstration. Thus, we witness both of those young rascals brandishing their swords and exchanging strikes. Witnessing this pathetic fight, Arel points out that the fundamental skill swordsmen acquire is basic fencing, and it seems that merely possessing this skill makes them quite capable combatants. With a challenging attitude, Arel asks the arrogant brat if he'd like to engage in a fight against him. The boy laughs, claiming he wouldn't stand a chance since he's classless and his opponent is a swordsman. Arel calmly assures him he'll be a good rival. Feeling completely underestimated, the brat agrees to engage in a combat, but first he wants to make sure if he possesses divine protection. Arel answers affirmatively. It is then explained that divine protection is another blessing received from the goddess, but in contrast to classes, everyone receives this blessing from the moment they are born. It is explained in detail that the protection is like a transparent net that protects the body and absorbs damage. However, enduring too many blows can deplete its power, and you will always experience some level of pain. Now certain of this, the brat tells him that he will finally be able to give him a beating without killing him. Our protagonist provokes him, which makes the annoying brat charge forward aggressively at Arel. Our black-haired protagonist blocks the attack and then deflects it, which astonishes the boy. However, this just makes him angrier, so he swings his sword. Arel manages to evade the strike, and when the brat attacks him, he easily blocks the assault. The other boy tells the brat to hurry up and finish him off. Despite the brat's efforts, every single one of his attacks is blocked and dodged as well. Annoyed that he can't defeat Arel, he asks the other boy for help, and that boy agrees to assist him. Like a coward, he attacks our protagonist from behind. Arel, noticing this, dodges the attack by stepping aside. Seeing how interesting the situation became, he thinks to himself that being close to his own skill level, they would definitely make for some excellent practice partners. While these two are bickering, he ponders whether or not abilities contribute to enhancing other capabilities, such as group tactics, because if that's the truth, those two might not prove to be sufficient for him. He sprints toward them with incredible speed. The young boy notices this and alerts his companion, but when his companion turns around, our protagonist is nowhere in sight. From one moment to the next, he takes a blow to the chin and falls unconscious. The brat calls Arel a bastard, but when he tries to move forward, he trips over his partner's body, a situation Arel takes full advantage of to finally put him on the ground. With both of them now on the ground, Arel considers himself the victor. However, they quickly stand up and begin to complain and make excuses, claiming he waited for them to drop their guard before attacking. At that moment, another boy appears and tells them to quiet down. He authoritatively asks them if they honestly believe the enemy will truly care if they start complaining like that on an actual battlefield. He points out that a swordsman doesn't act so pathetically. This rather arrogant attitude greatly annoys the young boy, but his companion advises him to remain calm, explaining that the red-haired swordsman is actually a very important person. The young red-haired boy then comes up to our protagonist and inquires if he is indeed the son of the sword princess Farah. Arel confirms this to him. So the redhead surmises he must have inherited some of her innate fighting talent to also be able to fight without a class, even though those other two are actually just weaklings. Drawing his sword and aiming it at Arel's face, he challenges him to a duel, wanting to demonstrate even to a classless individual like him what a true swordsman can achieve. Hearing this, the black-haired brat mentions that the redhead is related to the captain of the guard. The red-haired boy confirms this, saying that Captain Evans is his father. That name strikes Arel as somewhat familiar. Upon reflection, he remembers a man who used to occasionally ask his mother for help hunting demons, which he finds strange as they don't resemble each other at all. The redhead, visibly annoyed, insists that his father is an extraordinary person. However, Arel's mother is always considered the #1 swordsman in the village, something he finds unacceptable. And because children inherit their parents' talents, he plans to defeat him and demonstrate that his family is stronger than Arel's. He makes it clear he's been training for a year and has already reached intermediate level abilities. That's why he knows Arel can't possibly beat him. Arel attacks. This fight quickly becomes quite father, and that he has made considerable efforts as a swordsman. However, his mother also trained him in sword handling, so he's not planning on losing at all. With both of them firmly wielding their swords, they commence their duel. The red-haired boy then begins his assault. Our protagonist blocks and repels every single one of his attacks. This battle appears quite evenly matched, which astonishes the children. They liken the duel to the intense clash of a thunderstorm. They wonder if that guy is truly classless, considering he's managing to hold his own against someone with intermediate level abilities. Meanwhile, Arel recognizes that the red-haired boy is considerably stronger than the other two, but he notices a weakness. His anger is causing his strikes to become too careless. Therefore, he intends to capitalize on this. Finding the precise moment, he ceases his defense and launches an attack. However, the guy counters this by using an ability called Double-Edged Cut, which consists of 2 gusts of wind. Arel manages to block one of them, but the other one strikes his body. While on the ground, the red-haired boy sees him and admits it's astounding that he was able to block that from such close range, although in the end, he still managed to land a blow. In pain, Arel asks what that was and how he managed to attack from 2 places at once. The guy explains that it's an attack ability, specifically a double-edged cut, a technique that unleashes 2 slashes in a single attack. So someone classless like him won't be able to defend against that. After their intense combat, days pass by. We find Arel sound asleep. His younger sister attempts to rouse him with a tender kiss. Nevertheless, at that very instant, Arel suddenly stirs awake. Now we see him seated at the breakfast table with his loving family. After they finish eating, his sister asks if he's going to do special training again. Arel confirms this to her, but she responds that he doesn't need to exert himself so much, for she will forge a world where he can live in complete ease. Arel simply smiles and announces he's off to go training. This truly concerns his sister, for she's witnessed him staying out late each night since that day he returned home beaten. His mother reassures her, promising that her brother will be fine. She asks her to join her, and behind their house, upon opening a trunk, they discover a heap of broken swords. His mother clarifies that these are all the training swords Arel has been diligently using every day. This revelation greatly surprises the little girl. Then, his mother comments that training with other boys Arel's age seems to have motivated him greatly. The sister is pleased that her little brother hasn't truly become disheartened despite having no class, but she is still determined not to give up on her goal of creating a more compassionate world for her little brother. Meanwhile, our protagonist was engaged in practicing his attacks. In one of those attempts, he successfully performed the double-edged cut. In his mind, he believes that taking all those blows on purpose was entirely worthwhile if it meant he could learn and grow. Meanwhile, as Arel was deep in thought, a goblin observed him from the bushes. All of a sudden, it springs out to attack our protagonist. However, Arel notices it, and using the double-edged cut technique, he finishes off the goblin. All of a sudden, from deep within the forest, he hears an overwhelming roar from some sort of enormous monster. Perplexed, he considers alerting the gods, but then he hears the scream of a child. However, from that same direction, he hears a child scream. Understanding there's no time to seek assistance, he takes courage and ventures into the immense forest. There he encounters the same red-haired boy, quite badly wounded. He's injured, and before him stands a hobgoblin. Confused, he questions why the boy is in that spot, yet he also spots a practice sword, realizing the boy has been engaged in the same activities as himself. Our protagonist intently observes everything from within the bushes, devising a plan to conquer that hobgoblin. Just as the monster was about to finish off the boy, Arel interferes, and by utilizing the double-edged cut, he successfully takes down the hobgoblin. The boy recognizes him and was about to say something, but being so badly injured, he nearly collapses right there. Arel catches him, and noticing that his divine protection is depleted and his holy water has spilled, he offers him some of his own. Upon drinking that liquid, the boy instantly recovers, and the very first thing he does is inquire of Arel about the technique he had just utilized. Our protagonist replies that it's the same technique as his. The boy retorts that it's simply impossible because that technique is an intricate maneuver achievable only by possessing that particular ability. Arel confirms that it was quite complex, but that's precisely why he put in extra effort to learn it. This confuses the red-haired boy. Therefore, Arel simply explains to him that anyone with enough strength and speed can do it if they accurately calculate the moment, since the power truly comes from the momentum. Moreover, he tells him that the boy himself is truly the only reason he realized this in the first place, causing the young boy to blush. Arel tells the boy that he learned a lot from watching him up close in their last fight. He confesses that he has thought about him every day since then. This is escalating too fast, but it surprises and makes the boy nervous. With a hand on his chest, Arel confesses that he hates to lose, and for that reason he trained rigorously to be prepared for their next encounter. The boy understands and proposes a rematch. At that very moment, both pull out their swords and the battle begins. The boy uses his double-edged cut technique, but he is astonished to see that Arel not only blocks it but also delivers a third blow that wounds him in the shoulder. Confused, he complains that the technique is supposed to be only 2 cuts. Arel replies that his technique is not constrained by any class, and he's able to modify and enhance it through his own inherent abilities. Annoyed, the boy insists that it's impossible for someone who is classless to be stronger than a real swordsman. Tired of the constant arguing, Arel challenges him to prove it once more, so both of them perform the technique again. However, Arel is faster and lands a third cut that sends him to the ground. With his sword pointed at him, he reminds him that the situation has now been reversed. The boy inquires how he accomplished that, and Arel explains it was due to him, for by observing his style he managed to adjust and enhance his own cut. Frustrated, the boy lies there as Arel says, "I win." Several days later, during a family dinner, Arel finds out that Evans' son journeyed to Priskia, the city of swords. His mother states that she once worked there in a guild, brandishing her sword on a daily basis. Upon hearing this, Arel pondered how powerful he could potentially become even without possessing a class of his own. But hey, if you've made it this far, comment the word class to let me know you watched until the end. I'll leave these 2 awesome videos on the screen for you, just as awesome as the person watching this. See you next time. Take care, drink water, take a shower, and bye-bye.